Hi guys, welcome to another edition of Confessions of an Undertaker. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit different today. Rather than talking about kind of the what's going on in the funeral industry and what you can and can't put in coffins and what embalming is and what cremation is, I'm going to do something completely different and do a book review. Because as a lot of you know, I'm quite a big reader. I read an awful lot of books, and a lot of them are centered around the funeral industry. And this one is brilliant. It's called Confessions of a Funeral Director. Nothing to do with Confessions of an Undertaker. I should actually explain at this point, because I got a few comments online regarding the title of my blog. A few people have said that I've copied somebody else or tried to rip off the idea. That's not the case at all. So, okay, this book is called Confessions of a Funeral Director, written by an American funeral director called Caleb Wilde, who runs the Wilde Funeral Home out in the United States. It's his family-run business that he's been in most of his working life. And a few years ago, he started a blog, just like myself, called Confessions of a Funeral Director. At the time of me setting up my blog, I wasn't actually aware of Caleb Wilde or Confessions of a Funeral Director. So when I called my blog Confessions of an Undertaker, it was just a mere coincidence that somebody else had a very similar name. Of course, he concentrates on the American side of the funeral industry. I concentrate on the UK side of the funeral industry. Both very similar, but at the same time, very different. So, you know, the two blogs, you know, you get whatever you put into them, but basically, if you want to know all about the American funeral industry, read Confessions of a Funeral Director. If you want to know all about the UK funeral industry, read Confessions of an Undertaker. But that's by the by. My title came from a series of films. In the 1960s, England had a series of films called the Confessions series, and they were quite raunchy, kind of adult-based, almost like soft pornographic films, and they were called the Confession series. So you had Confessions of a Taxi Driver, Confessions of a Window Cleaner, Confessions of a Plumber. So when I was thinking up of my blog, I thought, oh, Confessions of an Undertaker, loose, you know, taking the kind of the film franchise name and using it. But anyway, so just to let people know, to clarify, I am nothing to do with Mr. Wilde and his blog. He has nothing to do with me or my blog. So I hope that kind of settles that. Anyway, back to the book. This was bought for me at Christmas time. It was on my kind of Christmas wish list, so I kind of knew I was getting it anyway. And it is absolutely brilliant. I really, really enjoyed every single minute of this book. It's quite an in-depth book because a lot of it centres around the author's personal life, particularly his spiritual life. Caleb is quite an open Christian. He makes no bones about that, and his Christian faith centres a lot around his working life and his private life. So the book, it's not a religious book, but religion and faith features quite heavy in it. It's quite different from anything I've read. because it's not really. I wouldn't call it a tell-all kind of warts and all autobiography, because it's not that type of book. If you want something that's gonna depict, the graphic stages of embalming, or what goes on in an autopsy, or how a body disintegrates during a cremation, and that type of thing, then this isn't the book for you. This is more of how one person basically has survived his life in the funeral industry. The subtitle of the book is "How the Business of Death Saved My Life." Quite a dramatic subtitle, you'd probably agree. But once you start reading the book, it makes perfect sense. I mean, reading the book, it's not like he was at death's door, so he thought he go into the family business and that saved him. It's not that type of melodrama. I think he was going through a really rough patch in his personal life, and it took seeing the more somber and the more closed off side of life, i.e. the funeral business, to really appreciate what he has in his own life. That's the way how I interpreted it anyway. And there's quite a few personal stories in there that I can relate to. You're reading through a couple of chapters, and there's one there, about a man's friends attending a funeral service, and this gentleman had died of a drugs overdose. So you would automatically assume, either rightly or wrongly, depends on how you view things, that the mourners in this congregation at this funeral, a lot of them would be kind of like a lower class, if you like, if I can say that, drug users. But that wasn't the case within this particular scenario, and again, that's something that I can relate to, because in the years that I've been in the industry, I've been in that situation where we've had somebody pass away who's passed away through a drug related death, and you thought, okay, that the people who are going to attend this funeral are going to be a bit dubious, a bit shady. But then when you turn up to the funeral, they're completely the opposite of what you really expect them to be. So the stories like that you can really relate to. The book itself, as you can see, it's not a huge, thick book. It is actually, well, you get to the acknowledgements, but it's 175 pages long, and it's like 15 chapters. Sorry, not 15 chapters, I do apologise. It is 16 chapters. And at the back of this book, which is what I really like, which is something that you don't find in any of these types of books, it's called discussion questions. So somebody's actually, broken down the chapters and asked him about certain points on each chapter. He goes on about a death negative narrative, which he feels that a lot of people do have nowadays, and he's right. I kind of agree with that. The way he's coming to it from an American point of view is that the American funeral industry is very, very commercialized, and if you want to get into the funeral industry, you've got to be very highly qualified in a certain aspect, whether you be an embalmer or a funeral director or maybe a funeral arranger. You've got to have done some kind of university degree level qualification before you can get in. And that obviously closes the door to a lot of people, because university and college is very, very expensive. I know it is over here. I don't know what it's like in the States. But you could be looking at, between £7,000 to £10,000 a term, for a university degree course over here. So you map out up over 4 years. That's quite a lot of money. So the death negative narrative, the way he explains it and the way he finds it, has been cultivated over the fact that there's only a select few people that can actually get into the industry. So therefore, not a lot of people get into it. So it's like we just palm our death off to those who are qualified to deal with it. And that's how he sees it. And I suppose that is the way in a lot of societies, especially a lot of kind of societies where cash is king. America, there's no doubt about it. They've got a very capitalist culture, and a lot of things do centre around money. And if you've got money, you're laughing, you're sorted. If you haven't, then life can be a real struggle. And kind of the funeral industry in the States has kind of gone that way, really, which is very, very sad. So what he wants to try and do is create more of a death positive narrative, where people, families can kind of be more involved in the funeral process, the laying out. Because of course, in America, in some states, as I understand it anyway, it's actually illegal for you to do certain aspects of a funeral. Now, I might be completely wrong about this. This is just from what I can gather through reading different things and seeing different TV shows and speaking to different people. So from what I can gather, some people actually can't do that because it's against a particular state's law. So therefore they have to hand it over to somebody who's qualified. And I think it's just like a vicious circle. And this book kind of goes in depth as to how that has come about and how it's still creating a bit of a problem in the States. So that's that. But excuse me, it's a really good book, really good. Other than it's a really good book, there's not a lot I can say about it, because again, it's got to be one of these things. I think you've got to kind of read it to really appreciate it. It's a fantastic book. I really enjoyed reading it, and I really hope that there's a second edition that comes out, because it gives me, as somebody who's in the industry but in a different part of the world, a really good insight as to how things work over in the States. And it's just a really good book. It's fascinating. It's it's personal. It's professional. It's everything you could possibly want. It's really well written, and like I said, it gets to the point of things. It gets to the heart of the matter without being really gratuitous and gross. So yeah, well done, Caleb. It's a brilliant book. I really enjoyed it, and I will highly recommend it to anyone. Please go out and buy a copy, because it's fantastic. So there we go. That concludes that edition of Confessions of an Undertaker. Nothing to do with Confessions of a Funeral Director, but stay tuned for more videos. I'm going to try and do a vlog over the weekend. A couple of people have said, what's like kind of a day in your life like? To be honest with you, it's not really that great. I'm on call this weekend, so it might be a little bit more interesting than usual. But it's nothing really to write home about. Obviously, a few people have said, well, can you do like a working vlog? That's not really possible, to be honest. As I'm sure you can all appreciate, you can't just be walking around with a video camera in a funeral home filming yourself, because, you know, I am actually there to do a job at the end of the day and not make YouTube videos. So that, unfortunately, is out the window. But I'm going to try this daily, this life vlog thing tomorrow. It might all go horrendously wrong, and in that case, you know, it just won't get published, or it'll go really well and there might be something new to look forward to. So hit the subscribe button and the like button and turn on the notifications, and we'll see you soon. Cheers now, bye.